Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole and it's by user Your Mother's Secret Lover. Am I the a-hole for being a bad babysitter when I never agreed to babysit? For context, I, 17 female, live with my dad and his mother. My grandma adores kids and they love her too. Whenever we go to family gatherings, they all swarm her. I'm the opposite. I don't like being around kids and avoid them at all times if possible, as they worsen my anxiety. It's been made clear to my family that I am not a babysitter unless it is a genuine emergency and I'm the last resort. Call me selfish for that if you want, but being around little kids causes anxiety attacks due to some past situations with my mother that I won't dive into. Despite that, my grandma told my neighbors, not sure of their ages, I'll call them Stacy and John, that if there was ever an emergency or their preferred sitter cancelled, she would watch their two daughters. I believe around 6 female and 9 female. This luckily doesn't happen often, and I've never argued about this because it is my grandma's house and I can simply stay in my room until the kids leave. This past Friday, John had a stroke and Stacy dropped everything to rush him to the hospital. But at the time, I didn't know this. Seeing as Stacy dropped the two girls off on our porch and didn't wait for anyone to answer the door before rushing off. The only issue is my dad was in another state to celebrate the 4th and my grandma was multiple cities over and wouldn't be home until later that night. I couldn't call her as her location tracking app said her phone died, and when I tried calling the family she was with, they didn't pick up. I don't know what to do with little kids, seeing as I don't babysit and haven't been around a child willingly in years. So I did my best with what I had. I made them chicken nuggets and fries, turned on Disney, and sat on the couch watching them, waiting until someone else got home. The girls didn't complain, but I was very uncomfortable the entire time. Seeing my neighbor's car wasn't in the driveway and knowing about their prior agreement with my grandma, I would have felt guilty turning them away, so I decided to just suck it up despite the anxiety. When my grandma came home, she told me she had charged her phone in the car on the way and Stacy had called her, letting her know about John's stroke and why she gave my grandma no notice about leaving them. To which my grandma replied she hadn't been home all night. I explained everything to my grandma and she apologized for putting me in that position. But I told her it wasn't her fault and just asked that she tell the neighbors to make sure she or my dad are home in the future to avoid this happening again. I also said this situation was an exception as it was an emergency, but I did feel a certain kind of way about her leaving her kids on the porch unattended. All lights were off and my parents' cars were gone, no indication anyone was home. She said she understood and I thought the situation was done and over with. That was until my neighbor came knocking on my front door while my parents were both working. She did not yell at me, but very passive-aggressively stated she was sorry her kids made me so uncomfortable, and said I shouldn't have fed the kids chicken without consulting her first, as they were trying to go vegetarian. 9 female had watched some kind of documentary and didn't want anyone in the house eating meat. I apologized but stated how exactly she would expect me to know that, seeing as I don't regularly interact with her or John and that the kids didn't mention it to me. 9 female didn't eat the chicken but didn't say anything to indicate she was uncomfortable with her or her sister eating it. I will admit my tone was rude. I tend to get snappy and irritated during confrontations. She said she was surprised my grandma didn't tell me and said that next time she'd make sure to give me a heads up when her husband had a stroke and I'd have to suffer with her children. I understand how hard it is when a loved one has a stroke. My dad had one last year, so I don't expect her to be completely rational right now and I understand the frustration. When my grandma got home from work, she showed me messages from Stacy saying she and John had been appalled by my behavior and that I shouldn't be left around kids, just like I've been preaching for years, and suggested to my grandma I get some kind of lessons, not sure if she meant parenting class or something else, on how to responsibly watch children should this happen again. My grandma politely declined the lessons but said she would talk to me. After showing me the texts, she said she understood my anxiety, but that I shouldn't have been so rude and it wasn't a big deal to watch the girls for a few hours. My dad sided with my neighbors and said I should probably learn a bit because I can't avoid being around kids forever. I didn't think I did anything wrong, and had Stacy stayed around to see if my grandma was there, this could have been avoided, and furthermore, I didn't complain much about watching them, just that it made me anxious, like all kids do. I do feel guilty for snapping on a woman whose husband just had a stroke, but I feel like she shouldn't be allowed to accuse me of being irresponsible because she didn't like how I handled her kids with zero notice and little experience with children. Am I wrong for not responsibly watching kids I never agreed to watch? No, OP, you're not wrong, and you're not irresponsible. You were put in a situation you never agreed to with no warning, no adult backup, and no context. You stepped up anyway. You fed them, you kept them safe, and managed your anxiety as best you could. You did not fail. You were composed under pressure. Now, what your neighbor did, despite the consequences, dropping her kids off on a dark porch without checking if an adult was home, that's negligence. And her sarcasm about the stroke, totally out of line. Stress doesn't justify disrespect. Your tone may have been sharp, but you were ambushed, not asked, and now you're being scolded for not flawlessly handling a job you never signed up for? Here's the truth, OP. You didn't fail at childcare. You upheld your boundary, adapted in crisis, and stayed composed. That's more responsibility than anyone else showed in this story. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Big Satisfaction 876 says, not the a-hole. I understand she had a legit and scary emergency, but she left her kids on a porch with no evidence of anyone being home, and you put your own comfort aside and made sure her children were safe, and even fed, I might add, which is the only thing that matters in situations like that. She should have apologized and thanked you and paid you, like one does with teenage babysitters. And OP responds, I kind of understand why she didn't pay me since she was going off of the assumption my grandma would be there, who watches them for free. I'm really mostly upset about the vegetarian thing because I'm not sure how I was meant to ask if they could eat meat when she left them without a word or any instructions. Crying emoji. Pixie Ann says, not the a-hole at all. You did a fantastic job under any circumstances and you should be proud of yourself for that. Your neighbor's anxiety about her husband gives her zero right to ever speak to you that way. She should never have just dumped the kids and run off either. They are her responsibility. If it happens again, you should call the police, assuming you can't get a hold of your grandma. You don't need parenting lessons, but your neighbor does. Leaving your children unattended is poor parenting. Your dad and grandma need to do better in supporting you. And OP responds, that's honestly why I thought I was the a-hole. My parents are very accepting of me being 100% child-free, so my dad saying I couldn't avoid kids forever felt very out of character. NoFunction223 says, not the a-hole. Who the F just leaves their kid on someone else's porch? For real, what if you weren't home? Stacy is taking it out on you. She can't get mad at her husband for having a stroke, and she sure as hell isn't going to be mad at herself for completely ignoring the well-being of her own children. So the only one left to be mad at is you, who did her the greatest effing favor on earth by taking the kids she abandoned into your home instead of calling the police. So very much not the a-hole. And sorry, Dad, but yes, you can avoid being around children your whole life. It's actually pretty easy when you put your mind to it. And Accomplished Duck 7816 says, you did nothing wrong. I would have gone off on old Stacy. As far as I read, you answered more politely than many people would have. If you are female, please don't feel that you should have some natural tendency to be able to care for children. You get anxious around them. Fine, don't be near them. I get anxious with heights. Nothing wrong with me. And OP responds, thank you so much, and trust me, I don't feel any inclination towards kids. My parents are actually supportive of me being child-free, which is why this feels out of character and why I thought I was the a-hole. Well, the community agrees that OP is definitely not the a-hole, and OP let us know why she thought she was. So now, let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. First, to clear up, the girls rang the doorbell, which is how I even found out they were there. I'd heard their car leave, but they waited maybe 15 minutes to ring the doorbell, so I didn't even know they were outside for a while. Not sure what the plan was had the house been empty. Anyway, I ended up waiting for my parents to calm down from work and decided to bring it up again, and they were a lot more receptive. I explained my side again and said that I would no longer babysit for Stacy under any circumstances, and next time this happened, I would be calling CPS for abandonment. My dad apologized for insisting I take a parenting course, but reiterated the situation was an emergency and I should give Stacy more grace, and my grandma said she would talk to Stacy. Unsurprisingly, Stacy didn't react well. She again said she was disgusted by how I treat people in a time of need and criticized my grandma for raising me to be so selfish. My grandma said if she had an issue with how she raised her grandchildren, Stacy shouldn't want my grandma around her own kids either, and that she was taking back the babysitting offer. Stacy didn't send a text reply, but came back to our porch and began banging on the door demanding to talk to me. My dad opened the door, we have a glass screen which was still closed and locked, and said if she didn't leave, he would call the police and report her for harassment and child neglect. That was enough to get her to leave, after spitting on the glass screen. Gross, but okay. A few hours have passed since then and nobody has heard from or seen Stacy, so I think this is finally done and over with. Thank you guys for the reassurance on my original post. Heart. Willoughby, I think overall it's a positive update. Your family stood up for you. Your dad told Stacy what's what. And I know that Stacy's situation sucks right now, but her husband's stroke doesn't entitle Stacy to treat you the way she did. And on that note, OP, here's wishing you the best in the future. Thanks for sharing and take care. And now, let's move on to the next post that also has an update. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole, and it's by user CrazyBad9429. Am I the a-hole for wanting to break up with my girlfriend when she said she wanted to keep things casual 8 months ago and now wants to move in with her kids? I, 34 male, have been seeing this woman, 41 female, for the past 8 months or so now. She was just getting out of a messy divorce and wanted something casual and fun. I told her I wasn't looking for anything serious either and made clear I never wanted kids because I knew she had 2 daughters in high school. We've had effortless chemistry, but we've never gotten more serious over the time of our relationship. Now, a few days ago, she brought up the idea of her and her kids moving into my place. I figured because I live on the beach, she just wanted an upgraded lifestyle, but then she brought up how the town I live in has a much better public school system than the one she's living in now. She's super sweet and I've met her daughters and they seem very nice, but I'm like, what the F? How do we go from a casual relationship to moving in and me becoming a stepdad overnight? I don't see a path that involves me saying how I felt and her just accepting things how they are. I feel like if a woman wants to move in with you, you're beyond the casual stage. She's even joked a couple times recently about how she knows she can't give me anything I don't already have, but she can always give me a cute baby. Shake my head. Like I said, she's really nice, but this is just way too much all at once. OP, I'm sorry, but for me, that is a no. She's shifting the rules mid-game. You were clear from day one. No kids, no commitment. If she's angling for more, then you owe her honesty, not silence. Just say no. Be kind, but firm. Don't let yourself slide into a life that you never agreed to. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. And now let's check out the community comments. Road Goddesses says, not the a-hole. Quite frankly, I really worry about a woman who is newly divorced and is already at this stage where she wants to move her 2 minor children into the home of a man she's not in a committed long-term relationship with. You need to have a very frank and open discussion, and quite frankly, you probably should end the relationship at this point. If I were you, I would be very mindful of your birth control going forward because this sounds like she may try to baby trap you. Proof Mongoose 4530 says, get out before she legit baby traps you. The comments about could give you a cute baby are a warning. Treat them like the red flag they are. This situationship has run its course and it's time to move on if you don't want something serious with her before she gives you an 18-year commitment. Prestigious.9776 says, maybe I'm the devil's advocate here, but I guess I don't understand how you are still casually dating after 8 months. That sounds more like a situationship. At the 8-month mark, it's not unreasonable for her to think it's a possibility because clearly you guys were serious enough for you to meet her kids. Clearly, you have a different view of this relationship than she does, and that's okay and you're allowed to break up for any reason. Just be mindful because as a 38-year-old single mother myself, I would never introduce my daughter to someone I was seeing casually. I was with my current boyfriend for over 6 months before she met him. I think she viewed the relationship as progressing due to her actions and probably figured you felt the same. Impressive Food 4371 says, time to have a serious conversation. You two are clearly not on the same page regarding the relationship. And Milagrosos says, bro, if they move in, you de facto become stepdad and your living situation changes from dating to parenting. She's doing this to save rent for starters. She's also seeing you as her best option for co-parent. Make no mistake, you're getting a whole family. If that's what you want, cool. If not, time to move on. Well, the community agrees that OP wouldn't be the a-hole, that he needs to move on from this if this is not what he wants, and to be careful with his birth control. So now, let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. Just want to start off by saying I appreciate all the advice and support. I told the woman that I was seeing that I couldn't continue on with her and that the idea of her moving in with her teenage daughters after 8 months of casual dating was too much too soon. She was pissed and went on and on about how I wasn't a good guy and that I used her and all that. I just hung up after a while and blocked her. On one hand, I feel like an a-hole for just dumping her out of the blue, but I honestly feel relieved. I think she was hoping I'd get her pregnant. After thinking about it more, I realized how could I possibly be with someone long-term who wanted to move in with me with her 2 teenage daughters after a casual relationship for 8 months? I met her daughters in passing just once and she wants to move them in with us? I think I dodged a bullet, but still feel a bit sad. She was gorgeous and fun, but a bit dangerous too, I suspect. Lol. Well, OP, I think you've made the right choice. If you felt like this relationship was just too much too fast, as you said, then again, you've made the right choice. So here's wishing you the best, OP. Take care and thanks for sharing. And now let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance and it's by user Turkey Ninja. Nice. Hallways had lanes for students to get them to class faster. I was a teacher at a middle school in 2014-2015. That was Title I school. Extremely low income and test scores. The state government actually removed all administration staff 2 years prior for the whole district as the student outcomes were so low. The new admin came in with a micromanagement authoritarian directive to improve test scores. One of their brightest ideas was to put lanes in the hallways to manage flow and get students to classes faster. There were 3 lanes, 2 one-ways along the walls and a middle teacher-only lane. Within about 3 days, all the students were driving imaginary cars. They orderly followed one another, would let people in to merge, used turn signals, and generally was pretty fun for a few days. The teachers would direct students at intersections and played along for a bit. The flow did slow down though, as students wouldn't pass each other and would have trouble merging into traffic around doorways. Another thing taking time was the students parking their imaginary vehicles outside the classroom. They would spend time backing into their spaces or have trouble parallel parking. The admin didn't like this and really started getting angry at the staff and students as so many kids were still tardy to class. They actively were handing out detentions and pretty angry at staff for playing along. This really triggered the students to start getting malicious. The students couldn't cross the middle lane, so they would have to walk down long hallways and make U-turns to see their friends or get to their lockers or classrooms. They started cruising the long hallways with their tricked-out imaginary lowriders. They would have shock noises even. Some of the really popular kids started a bus system where they had a schedule to pick up other students and deliver them to other classes. They would hold shoulders and move as a block. Sometimes the bus broke down at an intersection and blocked traffic for everyone. Drag racing started where they held up traffic and raced down the hallways. Police would pull people over and write tickets. The most annoying part was students needing to leave the classroom to check on their cars to make sure no one stole it. Sometimes a student would come back from the bathroom and ask if anyone was driving a type of car as it was being towed. The disruptions in class started to really get out of control. Admin thought it was going to be a phase and students would get bored. The best part about school for the students turned out to be the time in between classes. Everyone was tardy constantly. Eventually, the lanes, tape, were ripped up and they shortened the passing period by 2 minutes, so students had to rush to classes and couldn't spend any time in the hallways. The cars slowly died out, and the new fad was needing to use the restroom during class time because the passing period was like 3 minutes long and not enough toilets to satisfy all the students legitimately. Students were written up for needing to use the bathroom, so kids just started clogging toilets and peeing wherever. Other car things: flat tires, emergency sirens, car accidents, GPS problems, no gas, lost license, couldn't find keys, stole other kids' cars, repo cars, towing cars. Well, the admin wanted the lanes, but he got a whole traffic system instead. Thanks for sharing, OP. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.